What's up, everybody? My name is Jordan York. I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Nicasio, and you're tuning in to another episode of Steelers Crazy, a sick production. Hey, Sammy, bring us in.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Woo! Man, that intro never gets old. I'll tell you what, man. Shout out to our guy, Sammy. So first off, how are you?
I'm good, man. Have you recovered from that Steelers game on Saturday? I know you were there waving your towel as a fan and not media. Sometimes we have to cross over a little bit. But, man, I'm surprised you have a voice.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. For the first preseason game of the year, people are usually falling asleep. There wasn't a person asleep in that stadium. The chance of Kenny Pickett's, return to Acrisure Stadium, I guess it is a new stadium, but, still Heinz Field. It's just like, I couldn't explain it, man. It was just like a playoff atmosphere because I just think that there's so much change as we talked about on the previous episode with the Steelers, and kind of to go into that, getting to see, Mason and Mitch Trubisky for the first time. They all really played stellar. Obviously, it was with different points in the game, so they were playing against, second and third strings, some of the guys. But overall, man, it was just really, really good to see. So just kind of want to get your take on the, QB play and what you think about it going into the second game of the preseason.
Yeah, it was encouraging, no question about it. Trubisky was good. Anytime you score a touchdown on your first drive as a Pittsburgh Steeler, of the season, if you will, even though it was preseason, that's a big win, even though I know he came after the game and spoke to reporters and said he was a little disappointed they didn't score on the second drive. I like that he's holding himself to that standard. Mason Rudolph, I think, was probably the worst of the three, but that doesn't mean he was bad in any form or fashion. He threw an unbelievable dime to George Pickens in the right corner of the end zone, so I was impressed with what he was able to do, especially after he fumbled that first snap he took. So he played well. I'd give him a B+ if Trubisky got an A-. But the guy who I think gets an A is Kenny Pickett. I mean, could you script a better first action for Kenny Pickett in a Steelers jersey? It was like a movie script. It was Scorsese. It was James Cameron. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. The guy comes in to do the chants for me.
Kenny. I mean, how could you not get chills? I think they interviewed him, and he even said that, I'm not going to lie, that was pretty cool. And he's played in that stadium his whole career. But when you're at that next level and everything that you worked for is in front of you, you kind of just probably stand out there preseason, regular season, and be like, man, I kind of made it. I made my dreams come true. And there's no one more deserving. I got to watch Kenny at Pitt and met him numerous times throughout the years. And he really is that blue-collar Pittsburgh guy. I know he's from New Jersey, but we claim him now. So it's just the easy guy to root for. It's just, how could you
I don't know if it was the chance that inspired him. I heard something really, really interesting the other day, and I think I agree with this perspective. Somebody said that Kenny Pickett is a guy that in practice might not ever blow you away, right? He doesn't have the rocket arm like Malik Willis, Titans quarterback, a guy that a lot of people thought the Steelers might draft this past year. He doesn't have that cannon of an arm. His mobility is not out of this world. He's not Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, of course. He throws with a glove on, right? So obviously, he how many times have we heard he has small hands, right? But when the game hits, he's a gamer, man. He just seems like one of those guys, like he cares about practice, but he doesn't blow you away. And the game hits and he goes into this mentality of he turns into a superhero. He goes from Clark Kent in practice to Batman in the game. I'm sorry, Superman in the game. I'm getting my superheroes messed up. He goes from Bruce Wayne in practice to Batman in the game. I mean, he's an absolute gamer. And we saw that on Saturday night because he put together an incredible performance and a comeback victory.
Yeah, I mean, it was a storybook ending. I mean, I know it's, again, I keep stressing that it's only preseason, but this is, some of these guys, they're just trying to make the 53-man roster. And so we're going to switch it up a little bit and talk about a specific person here. Obviously, kind of with his play since the ACL injury. I know who I'm talking about, but we'll go ahead and say it, Mr. Devin Bush. I actually watched something today on the reporters, and he just kind of answered the question as to, is this year's, the year that you kind of got to step up? And he kind of shrugged it off and said it's a business. And I kind of wanted to get your take, on that. And I seen that you had a tweet earlier this week that stated about, I'm not going to make a whole assumption on, one preseason game of Devin Bush. Let's see how which I totally agree. I think that he is still going to have a bounce back year. I kind of think that, obviously, he's a first round pick and he's going to get graded like that his whole career. But I still think that he has the talent to be, a quality linebacker in this league and hopefully contribute to the Steelers this year. So just kind of wanted to get your whole take on the Devin Bush saga going on.
I'm glad you brought up both of those points. That was a great setup for sure, because I still feel that way about what I said. I think it was yesterday, in terms of, the guy played like 3 preseason defensive series. Yeah, he didn't look great, but you can't judge anybody off of 3 series. He didn't get a whole game. I'm not ready to bash the guy based on the first action of the season in limited action. That's an overreaction. Was he bad last year? Yeah, he was. But I don't think he was at full strength. You mentioned the ACL tear. This is his prove-it year. There's no question about it. But I think he missed the layup today. And as a professional athlete, you can't miss a layup. You can't do it.
As a Pittsburgh Steeler.
In basketball, if you miss a layup, people are going to, look at you and say, you're a professional. You can't miss this. I probably make 99 out of 100 layups playing on the court in the backyard, even when it's raining. He was asked by reporters, does he feel pressure? Does he feel like this is a prove-it year? And he basically said, I'm going to be in the NFL regardless. It's an easy answer. You say something along the lines of, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I can control what I can control. And at the end of the day, we'll see how it plays out. He kind of scoffed at it and made a remark that was very defensive. And the last year plus was the most defensive thing he's done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he could have answered the question better, but at the end of the day, what truly matters is his play on the field. So hopefully, he'll keep his head down and really just try and come back stronger, because the Devin Bush that I've seen rookie season, where is that at? That was a special player, and I think that's still in him. I don't know. I can't personally speak on what it's like to come back from an ACL injury, but yeah, man, I just wish him the best, and I really do think that he is going to come. But yeah, I would have handled that a little bit different, but it is what it is, man. So we're going to talk about something that I kind of paid attention to, was the offensive line. Obviously, we know that was a big problem last season. Some shifts. Dan Moore Jr., man, didn't really see much from him. Kendrick Green. Again, I'm not going to make all the assumptions off of one preseason game, especially for the offensive line, because I feel like, again, around, the midpoint of the season, that's when they can really start to, say, okay, did this lineman improve, or are we at the same point we are last year? But yeah, I just didn't really see any sparks from, them. People were getting blown off the line. You've seen Mason, the first time he goes in there, which they shouldn't have been booing the man. I'm never going to root for a Pittsburgh Steeler to fail. And I just feel that sometimes Pittsburgh can be really hard. But yeah, that first play, it was like a revolving door that just the D linemen just walked. They could have just walked. Me or you could have walked through. So just kind of to get that take on, what you think the play was on
It looks
Saturday.
like you changed positions in 1 week. Last week you were a gunner on special teams, and this week you're playing defensive line. Man, you must have bulked up. What have you been eating? A cheeseburger?
No. Maybe I'll stick to like tailback and follow the holes wherever they tell me to run. But yeah, no, I
Well,
won't be on any line anytime soon.
well, I guess if you want to talk about offensive lines and you're going to play tailback, you're probably not going to run very far if you're playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Yeah.
because as you mentioned, at least last year, the offensive line was the weak spot. I'm going to say literally, though, the same thing I said about Devin Bush. They played a few series. I'm not ready to overreact. I think the only really downside that you could take away if you look at it from this perspective is there's a lot of pressure on those guys to be
Yeah.
better, right? There's so much pressure on them because they faced a lot of negativity last season. And obviously during the offseason, they all heard the clamoring. This offensive line hasn't been good. The Steelers didn't do enough to address it. I thought they did. James
I think
Daniels
they did.
coming over from the Bears at right guard, Mason Cole at center. So maybe it'll take some time for them to gel. But yeah, I think it's discouraging the fact that they heard all that chatter. And in their first preseason action, they weren't able to quiet that chatter.
Yeah.
I still think the line's going to be much improved. And listen to this, right? They're getting a ton of negative attention for their performance. All three quarterbacks threw touchdown passes. The running backs were fantastic. Anthony McFarland, I think, averaged over 5 yards a carry.
He looked
Jaylen
great.
Warren was really good. So how can you bash them too much when the whole offense is performing pretty darn well?
Mm-hmm.
And mobility at the quarterback position, I talked about it last week a ton. Trubisky, his touchdown pass to Gunnar Olszewski, he rolled to his left and was able to throw a dart in the back left corner of the end zone. That's impressive, and it's important because if you don't have the best offensive line in the league, you need a mobile quarterback. Steelers didn't have one last year. They have one now, and that will cover up a lot of holes on this O-line.
Yeah, so kind of stepping back to the offensive line, let's talk about that running back number 2. How important that is. Jaylen Warren, as you said, he did have that fumble, and I did see someone tweeted out that he was carrying around a football during camp. They said 24 hours. He like sleeps with it. So is this to me, that seems like running back number 2. I mean, you're going to have fumbles, but the dude really showed spurts and really had a good game aside from that fumble. Kind of just, Benny Snell, I don't know, man. I really don't see Anthony McFarland. I'm just like, I'm like at a loss for words because who is running back number 2? I think that's what everyone wants to know. Like, it's like this, is it still too early to make that decision? But I feel like that's something that you would want to find out because, poor Najee, he's going to be getting, 30 carries, if not more a game at this point.
Man, I got bashed last week on Twitter a little bit for saying that the Steelers' biggest offseason gaffe was their failure to address the backup running back position.
Yeah.
I have folks yelling at me left and right. What do you mean? Jaylen Warren has had an awesome camp, and Anthony McFarland has had an awesome camp. And I kind of was like, all right, do me a favor and name some teams that have worse backup running back situations, and nobody could name one. And then they could name a couple. Somebody threw out Arizona, and I was like, all right, if you can name 2, that means they have the 3rd worst backup running back situation. That doesn't really make it much better. I will say this. It was encouraging. Jaylen Warren looked really good. He reminded me so much of James Conner.
Yeah.
It's insane. I tweeted that on Saturday and I'm watching the game. Same number. I don't know if it was the same number. They have the same build. They're both powerful. They can both catch it out of the backfield. It creeped me out, dude. Like, it really creeped me out. You went from Kenny Pickett playing with Pitt at formerly Heinz Field to James Conner playing with Pitt at formerly Heinz Field to Pickett and a James Conner clone, a doppelganger of him, and Jaylen Warren now playing at Acrisure Stadium. It tripped me out a little bit, man, because it looked like James Conner back there with Jaylen Warren, which is a big compliment, especially from an undrafted free agent to play so well. Anthony McFarland was an alien. I've never seen that Anthony McFarland my entire life. He always reports on him where that he struggled to digest a playbook for his first 2 years, which is bad. I mean, you're an NFL player 2 years in as a running back. I mean, it's like there's counter left, counter right, halfback zones. You run a Texas route every once in a while, a swing pass. There's not as much to digest. You're not a quarterback. You're not a linebacker. There's a few duties. So that was bad. He looked amazing this past preseason game. So those are encouraging signs. Master Teague even got in the action a little bit towards the end. Mateo Durant had an awesome block on a Kenny Pickett run, I think it was, at the end of the relatively as the game progressed. I think it was the last drive, I should say. So, yeah, am I ready to proclaim their running back situation fixed? Heck no, man. That's one preseason game. Same thing I said about Devin Bush. I'm not ready to collapse his roof. But was it encouraging? Big time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Hopefully that, like I said, I'm just at a loss for words because I can't even pinpoint, because, what if Mateo Durant goes the rest of the preseason, has great, and Anthony McFarland doesn't do, you just don't really know. We still have time to figure that out, but I think that's just as important as the offensive line is having a quality running back number 2. So I hope that, they're able to figure it out, which they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sure they will. So, my favorite part of the show is, when we ask the fan questions. So, Sammy, why don't you throw the first one up there? And this is from DC Kicker 3. I guess I'm going to ask you, and maybe you can ask me one. What are the chances we see our full offense and full defense on the field for at least a few series in the preseason?
Well, thank you, DC Kicker 3. I wonder if he or she is a Jeff Reed fan. That number 3, that's our boy, formerly of a Super Bowl champ. My guy, Jeff Reed, over there. Chances are good. And if it were to happen, it's this game coming up in Jacksonville on Saturday. The starters get more run in the second preseason game because it's the audition at this point, the dress rehearsal, I should say. It's the real dress rehearsal, because you want that week, the third game, which you only played three preseason games now, you want that week to be kind of a rest week. They're probably not even going to play at all in that third preseason game. So this is the week where the starters are going to have that dress rehearsal. I think Trubisky could play the whole half. I think you'll see Deontay Johnson out there. Najee might get some work, even though I'm against it. I don't want to see him get one carry in the preseason. I've already seen guys, banged up. Obviously, Anthony Miller got hurt in practice. Carl Joseph got hurt in the game. It really is a shame. But this game against Jacksonville will be the dress rehearsal. So I think you will see a lot of starters playing significant time.
Yeah. All right, Sammy. How about another question here? This is from Stupid Zach 101. Love that name, Zach.
It's a good question.
I don't think you're stupid, though.
It can't be that stupid. It's a good question.
It is. It is a very good question.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
All right.
What's the weak? We just talked a lot. So what's the weakest position on defense and offense coming in 22 season?
Well, I'm going to say the offensive line. The question is still out there, but I have faith in that. I think that, like I said, I'm still at a loss for words. I'm like trying to gather up thoughts. I'm just scatterbrained right now as to the running back too, and it doesn't seem to be that important of an issue. And you're like, well, it's just the backup. I'm like, yeah, tell that to Najee Harris. And he says that he wants that workload, but man, I just don't want to see something happen to him because he's just a valuable asset to this team. And this is kind of a different take on the defense. Is that, and I think this is something that I always kind of looked at as a football fan, is that defensive backs play. Let's take Trey Norwood, who was a 7th round pick last year, and he really stood out. And then you guys, you have guys like Cam Sutton and everyone that's been there for a while. Joe Hayden, wish he would come back. But what I'm getting at is the cornerback is such a important position, because there's cornerbacks that we used to call in high school. I know you remember this, toast and that sort of thing, because they got burnt downfield. So I just really hope that this group of cornerbacks that we have can really continue to progress and play, because I think the defensive line is great. But it's always a question as to are these players gonna live up to everything, and it goes the same for any high draft picks. But I just picked the Steelers cornerbacks. I really hope that they can play up this year, because that is an important position that I think a lot of people forget on defense.
Fire up the next one. What do we say, Sammy?
Warriors Armando. Most interesting player to draft on the Steelers for fantasy other than Najee. I mean, me personally, I would say George Pickens. He is him.
Well, I'll tell you what, you also came to the right guy here. It's quite embarrassing, maybe is the word. I don't know. I think it's productive and constructive, but I think already 6 fantasy football teams. So I like to peg myself as a fantasy football expert. I think I won 3 of them last year, which means I'm not going to win any of them this year because that's just how it goes with luck of the draw. Pickens is a good call. I mean, maybe a little bit of a sleeper, but I would say it's still got to be Deontay Johnson. He's caught over 100 passes, I want to say, the last 2 years. Even though he obviously hasn't had a ton of rapport with Mitch Trubisky so far, he's incredibly talented. He's a PPR monster. If you're playing a points per reception league, he's going to catch 100 balls. His touchdowns might not be as high as the George Pickens because Pickens has a little bit of that more red zone ability. But, dude, Deontay is scrappy, just not on the field, but on your fantasy team as well. Yeah. So take him and prosper.
Yeah, man. So any final thoughts going into the Duval?
No thoughts going into Duval. I want to see the defense, specifically the linebackers, Devin Bush, Miles Jack, even some Robert Spillane, play better. This is an opportunity for this defense to show out. This Jaguars team won, I think, 2 games last year, 2 or 3. But they did allow the Steelers to get in the playoffs with that last win against the Colts. Yes. So if the Jags kind of take it down the field and, run it down their throats and Trevor Lawrence is dominating, that's not a good sign. These linebackers certainly are going to be under a microscope. And I also got to say, what a great job the Sick Podcast is doing, helping us out. Follow us on Twitter at SickPod Steelers. I'll say it one more time, at SickPod Steelers. You can see it on the bottom line here. Follow us on Instagram as well, at the Sick Podcast Steelers. I want to shout out some of our Pittsburgh local ties here, yinzershop.com, some of the best Pittsburgh products you'll find around, T-shirts, mugs. My favorite are the ones that say it's still Heinz Field to me, because it is. I'm probably going to mess up all season and still call it Heinz Field. So check that out. We're proud of all of these great things going on and happy to have more endeavors moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And let's just end it like this. Stay crazy, and here we go, Steelers. We'll see you next time on Steelers Crazy.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.